This is Tim Leary. He's a U.S. government teacher, econ teacher for years at Rancho Buena Vista High School. I personally had the pleasure of working with him when I was working at RGV, and then working with him around some other stuff as a volunteer when I wasn't working at Rancho Buena Vista High School. And this is Tim, and he's been doing this for years, and he's super excited, and he has a lot of information. And again, questions that you have before it starts, in case he doesn't answer them, so that we can go out after them. We have 2 hours. I'm going to leave it up to Tim. He'll decide when we're going to take a break. Maybe before you do Prop 50 or whatever. Okay?
I can read my lips.
All right.
Take a break.
So thank you, Tim.
The last time I was here was right after President Trump took office and started issuing those executive orders, and that was the topic of that talk. What's in the power, where the powers lie to limit the actions of the president and hold them in check. And we went over checks and balances and separation of powers. So now this has kind of been spurred, as it will come up here about Prop 50, the president's request of finding additional congressional seats throughout the country in order for him to maintain a Republican majority in Congress. Right? As long as there is about a split balance of power, we will see a president hand over bills to a Congress that will pass them because they are of the same party. Now, before you get off and get all like, oh, that's terrible, well, that's what California has. Right? We have a Democratic governor who hands over bills to a Democratic legislature, which means Governor Newsom gets. Right? So it's one of those be careful what you ask for type things. This is going to be more about the fact that maybe the game's not being played fairly anymore, and it is. Either there's a cricket or that's a
cell phone.
Well, it's somebody's
phone cricketing.
hello.
Oh,
Rebecca here.
She's out looking for her phone.
This is like actually like a classroom experience.
This is like a real classroom experience.
Someone's phone going off. People want to try to find Rebecca.
She's out there looking for her phone. Rebecca. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim.
Actually, yeah, sure. That better? No, it gets better. It gets better there.
Oh,
It will get better.
perfect, like that.
So on a bright note, my students have been really, really good about phones this year. So that was actually my first experience with a phone going off. So I'm gonna start with a history lesson. I'm a history teacher. So this, to me, in order for the end product to make sense and to be relevant and to really be able to dive into what's going on, we gotta go all the way back. So we go all the way back. And we start with how Congress was even formed in the first place. In the Constitutional Convention in 1787, you had two different proposals. The first proposal was the New Jersey Plan, that equal representation would happen for oops, I think I may have done that. I have those flipped. Don't look at that. All right. Actually, no, that's right.
That's right.
No, it is flipped. So, no, I'm sorry, I'm right. I just like freaked myself out that I made a mistake. So, the small states were worried about being dominated by the bigger states. So they proposed a plan where equal representation based in the states, so that population wouldn't play a role. And there was some reasons for that. During the Articles of Confederation, the states were not getting along. It's why we had these representatives show up in the first place. The country was falling apart. There was no executive branch. The states were free to decide how they were going to enforce laws, and the big states were exhibiting their might. They were using their leverage, and small states were getting picked on. New Jersey is an example of that, sharing the Hudson River with New York right across the bay, right across the river, and New York was picking on them. And trade routes and other issues like that were going against New Jersey. So they proposed a plan where every state was going to have equal representation. The big states go, what? Like, we have 15 times as many people as you, and you're going to have the same amount of vote as us? And they think that's crazy, and they put in a plan like, no, it's got to be based on population. Based on how big your state is, how populated your state is, should determine how much say you have in Congress. So what do? We did both. All right, the Constitution is known as a bundle of compromises. So instead of just doing one plan, they divided up and they put both plans in place. So the House of Representatives is the Virginia plan, which bases it on population. Whereas the Senate is the New Jersey plan. Each state has 2 representatives in the Senate. And when it says, for the House, each state will get at least 1. So anyone knows states that only have 1?
Montana.
I actually don't think Rhode Island is a 1.
Yes.
So it's Wyoming, it's Idaho, it's the Dakotas. San Diego County has 4. The entire state of Wyoming has 1.
Based on population.
Based on population. Right? So they have not gotten to a precipice with their population where they deserve a second seat. Right? So what's going to come up later is, well, when they do, that seat's got to come from somewhere. Because the way we did this changed from the word apportionment to the word reapportionment. What we used to do is we used to give out new seats. We used to hand them out as states grew, and as we increased states, as immigrants came in, we just handed out more seats. So eventually, they felt there weren't enough seats. So the history of apportionment means to distribute. And the distribution of seats is based on the decennial census. So every 10 years, we take a census. So starting immediately in 1790, immediately we had a decennial census. Immediately, the size of the House changed from the beginning of the Constitution. And every 10 years after that, every 0 year, we do a census. Obviously, the census in 2020 was very controversial because we were in the middle of COVID and whether we were going to be able to carry that out. But we're the United States. We're a very rich country that has ways to get around obstacles, and the census took place, and we were able to modify our districts and redistribute our seats. But back then, it wasn't redistribution. It was apportionment. They just handed out new seats as states grew, as states joined the Union, as immigrants came to the country. So the original size was 65. I have looked and looked and looked about how they came up with that number. I have no idea. I think they may have picked it out of the hat. So 65 was what they decided on in that constitution, in that constitutional convention. And then immediately after the census of 1790, they see how many more people are in the country, and they decide we need more, and they hand it out to 105. Which means every time they do that, you have to redraw the lines. So as a state gains, they have to redraw the lines. As a state comes in, they have to create their lines. There is constant remapping after a census. Now, the reason why it says 1792 is because the lines go into effect 2 years after the census. So they do the census, you get the numbers, then you have 2 years to come up with your maps. In the 2 year, you will then have new districts. So you can see how the House of Representatives grew. There is a little craziness there in 1842 that it actually went down because they drew so many districts that they didn't have as many people they didn't have as many people in the House, so they actually shrunk one time. But you can see how big that it got. It originally started at 65, and in 1912 it hit 435.
So has that been done every 10 years since 1790?
Every 10 years. Right. But this is the last year, right there. That's the reason why 1912 is on the list last, is because our number currently is 435. So that's the last year that they gave out seats. Right? So apportionment ended right there. So you can see from 1792 to 1912 that we're giving out more seats. We went from 13 states. At that point, I believe we were at 48. By the way, the 435 does take into account that we were about to add 2 states to the Union. They factored that in. And you have massive immigration to the United States. You have the good old-fashioned way of making babies. So from 13 to 50 states, from immigration to the birthright, we have the growth of the House from 65 to 435. Why did they stop? You guys ever try to make decisions with 435 people? Right? You know, it's hard to decide where to go to eat with 4 people in the household. You've got 435.
They changed the ratio of what was the majority.
Okay, so,
Oh, fine.
all right, so in 1922, they just bailed on it. The census comes in for 1920, they're looking at each other going, we don't want more people in this room. And they just looked around and said, we're just leaving them exactly the same. They just skirted it, they just left it alone. States that should have gotten more didn't get them. Districts that changed in size, just nothing changed. They kept the lines exactly the same from 10 years prior. Even though the country had grown, even though states probably did have more immigration, they just bailed on it. By the way, they didn't necessarily get right to the cause of fixing that. They wait all the way until 1929, right before the next census of 1930, to decide, you know what, we probably need to act on this because we just bailed on it in 1920. So we need to do something. And now you have the change of the word from apportionment to reapportionment. From here it changes from distributing seats to redistributing seats. So the number of the House representation is going to stay at 435. It's not going to change. It's going to take a constitutional convention, or excuse me, it's going to take a constitutional amendment to change that number. It's stuck at 435, which means that if a state grows and its representation needs more, that state needs more representation, some states got to lose it. Because now you redistribute those 435 seats. The state gains 2 have to be lost somewhere else. So an example of, so that created the mechanism to redistribute seats based on population. Actually, I want to go back one slide real quick. So the thing that happened here in 1842 is that is the first time that states actually started to be divided up into districts. At that point in time is when they decided that we weren't just going to elect from the state and have 4 people from the same place and 3 people from the same place and nobody from over there. They said, you know what, we need to make sure the whole state has someone voicing for them. And in 1842, you have the districts. So some 90 years later, they're now coming to the conclusion of now we're going to have to redistribute and redraw these lines every 10 years. All right, so who knows what happened to California in 2020? We lost how many? We lost 2. What happened to us in 1990? Gained 5. Right? And where I lived was one of the reasons. I lived in Riverside. Riverside County was like the fastest growing county in the United States for like 9 straight years. Right? Because houses were so cheap. We just started building out towards Palm Springs and communities were popping up all over the place. Well, we gained seats. So are we still the largest state in population? By far.
Yes.
Right? But we went from 53 to 51. Who's next? Texas with?
6.
Well, they got our 2.
Too many.
How many do they have?
They are currently at 39. I might be off by 1 or 2, but they're high 30s. I'm pretty sure they jumped from 37 to 39. Right. Anyone else know the relevance of these numbers? What else they play a part in? Something else they decide?
The Electoral College.
The Electoral College is based on this number. So Electoral College is 537, 435 members of Congress, 100 of the House, 100 members of the Senate. So there's a state's worth. And then we've thrown in 3 for the District of Columbia. So it's 538, which means when you get to that magic number of 270, you're the President of the United States. It's based on these numbers. But it also means that's how much your state is worth. So California's value in the Electoral College has gone down after the 2020 census. Texas's value has gone up. Right, so if you look at that Electoral College map, there were, actually I might have that map coming up. I have that map coming up, we'll talk about that too. So here's what's happened with the redrawing of districts, some examples of how reapportionment has become necessary to redraw lines. So in California, in 1982, we added 2 and we jumped to 45. And then in 1992, we added 7. We went all the way up to 52. We have since lost 1 and are down to 51. So we were worth, by far, we're the value, we're the biggest state. But we went down and Republican states went up. And that's why the Republicans have a majority in Congress right now. So key historical constitutional, or excuse me, a Supreme Court decision of Westbury versus Sanders. It's known as the one man, one vote. And when I ask my students, hey, what do you think that means? Like, oh, you can only vote once. It's not what it means. Yes, you can only vote once. Right? But what it means is that your vote is supposed to be equal to everyone else's vote. And if you have districts that are vastly different in size, it means your vote can be either worth more or less than someone else's vote. So let's take a state that has 2 million people, and they do a district of 1 million, a district of 500,000, and 2 districts of 250,000. Where do you have more power with your vote? Smaller ones. You're 1/250,000th of the vote. Or that one district, you're 1/1,000,000th of the vote.
Yeah.
That's not fair. And that's what they hadn't taken into account until this suit went all the way to the Supreme Court with Westbury versus Sanders. Now, they don't demand them to be equal 1 by 1. There's no way that you're going to be able to get them exactly the same size. That would be insane. The math there would just, like it would draw a line straight through a house or something like that. Like, we can't ask for that level of accuracy, but they have a number they shoot for. And that number is 770,000. That number has increased. In my 30 years of teaching, it used to be around 700,000, and now with the growth of the country and just how widespread we're into rural communities, that number has changed to 770,000. That is why Wyoming by districts. Yes. So if you do the math of 51 times 770,000, you will come out pretty close to California's state population, because we have 51 districts. We have 770,000 per district, and that just tells you how many people are in California. Which means Wyoming doesn't have 1.4 million people yet. So when they hit that threshold, Wyoming will go up, and they will get a second district. That district's got to come from somewhere, because we're not going to 436, we're staying at 435. Okay.
But why not? Why can't Congress could change that?
Because if they change it to 436, then it's going to go to 450, and then it's
Right.
going to go to 4.
But I mean, it could happen.
It could, but it won't. Because they already think 435 is too big. They won't change it. And they're right. 435 is too big. They looked around, they're like, all these people are going to talk. We're going to listen to all these people argue, which is why the House has rules. Not everyone is allowed to talk. And when you are allowed to talk, you're not allowed to talk for very long. And that's why you don't hear about a filibuster in the House. You only hear about filibusters in the Senate. Because the Senate does not have rules. There's only 100 of them. They're considered the upper house. They're considered senators. Therefore, they're allowed to talk as long as they want. All right? So 435 was already too many, and they're not going to budge from this. This is what's going to happen. And so the one thing that they do have to pay attention to, besides keeping their districts in equal size, is they do need to adhere to the voters' voting rights acts to eliminate racial discrimination. Their lines, like that is the one microscope that goes to it to make sure that you have not violated that. By the way, California kind of got tested on that back in 1992 about doing it the other direction, of not suppressing racial minorities, but actually trying to promote racial minorities. What is the makeup of Congress? If you dip your hand into that 535 and you lay it on a table, what do they look like?
White.
White?
Men.
Old? You're 3 for 3. There's one more. Rich.
Oh,
There is a 5th one. That's a good one. They're very educated. But those first 4 is what we look like. So in 1992, California tried to change that. And when they redrew those districts to add those 7 districts, there was some questions that, it's funny, like that neighborhood's kind of over there now, and we were trying to increase the racial disparity, like trying to get rid of the racial disparity of only having white men in the House. Those lines were then, well, I get into that a little bit later. Those aren't the lines we used. We had to redraw them a few times. But that ratio of white men has gone down, but it's still vastly a place of white rich men. And yes, they're old too. Okay. So you have to have equal size. You have to make sure that you adhere to the Voting Rights Act and make sure you prevent racial discrimination. After that, it then changes because we're a federalist country, which means that we set the rules and then we tell the states, but you get to do what you want. And that's why we're in the predicament we're in, because Texas, the state legislature draws their lines. So having a Republican governor who's going to sign that bill, having a Republican majority in their state legislature, when President Trump came along and asked for more seats, they said, sure thing, passed it, signed it. Whereas here in California, we have a different system. In California in 2000, it says, so it started in 2010. I'm going to kind of jump to this next slide here. I'll come back to there a little bit. So in 2012, we passed Prop 40. So in our state, it is not in the hands of politicians. In our state, it is in the hands of a redistricting committee, citizens like us. Our politicians don't draw our lines. Citizens do.
Why? You get on that committee. Yeah. You get elected to be on that committee, you get to volunteer.
It is a commission, I'm pretty sure you have to run for it. I'm pretty sure it's people pick the people. Why did we do it that way?
To be more fair.
Yeah, to be fair, to be democratic. Right? Like, we draw the lines so that it's a fair shot.
Do you know how many states have an independent commission?
It's not very many. You can probably guess which ones it is.
They're mostly Democrat, but I think there's only 9.
I think it actually might be less than that.
Oh.
I think it might be 7 with 2 trying to add it.
Okay.
But you're in that right range.
Yeah.
Yes. Whereas the majority of the states are
Republicans like to cheat.
right. And if you look at a map of a presidential election, the Democratic nominee doesn't win a lot of states. He just win the big ones. Right? And that whole swath through the middle of the country that is very small populated states, they tend to vote Republican, and all that is run by state legislatures, which means the people they're sending to Congress are Republican. Do you guys know out of our 51 how many are Republican? So of our 51 districts, how many Republicans do we have?
In California?
9.
Oh, okay.
So out of our 51, we already have 42 that are Democrats. Only 9 of them are Republican. And do you think that is the actual ratio of a 90-10 split? Or excuse me, like is it a 7-3 split when it comes to the number of Republicans and Democrats in California? Both
But it's
sides
supposed to
play the
be
same.
with the independent commission.
But that would mean that the independent commission is nonpartisan. It doesn't necessarily have to be nonpartisan. This has to be that, it didn't say nonpartisan, it said citizens commission. It just means that our lawmakers, our legislators are not making the maps. That citizen commission gets to go in and argue like anybody else would argue. They're going in with their beliefs, they're going in with their mindset. Sure, I bet you some of them walk in and say, no, we're going to make this as fair as possible. And some are like, no, we're going to win this thing. Because people are people. And everyone walks in with their values and their thought process. So even with being fair, it is still 42-9. Okay? The thing is that Governor Newsom wants to make it 47-4 because other states are playing the game too. That's what we're going to get to now. Any questions so far? Yes?
In California, does the popular vote coincide with the way the districts are.
It's a good question. So her question is, does the popular vote coincide with it being 42 to 9? The answer is no. Right? But
It's higher.
yes, Republicans get more votes than that on general elections. So for instance, our senators, if you look at that vote, it was not a wipeout where it would have kind of equaled the fact that there's 42 Democrats and only 9
Oh, so the
Republicans.
Republicans get more. Okay,
Yes.
good.
So there are more Republican voters.
And they're not getting represented.
Well, it's because of how the districts are drawn. So try winning a Republican vote in any of the districts in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You're not going to, right? Orange County, you get a couple, but that's even swung a little bit lately, right? You know, since we moved here, San Diego has changed. You know, ISA used to win easily around here. He had to move to go win, right? He's still winning. He just moved. Right? So, both sides play this game. Unfortunately, there's a side that's better at it than the other, and that's what's coming to play right now. Any other questions so far? All right. So the history of gerrymandering comes from Elbridge Gerry from Massachusetts, where he first did this. This did not work. This is not in the House of Representatives because we didn't even have districts until 1842. He's doing this actually in the state of Massachusetts. And he wanted to make sure that he continued to have his party be supported and the fact that his platform and his policies to keep winning. So he was trying to rig that map so that his party would continue to win. And it's the first example. And the Boston Gazette called it gerrymandering, threw in the famous cartoon of that district maps, and the term has stuck.
What party was he?
You know what? That was before the Republican Democratic Party were official. But Democratic and Republican parties aren't those two sides until 1856 is pretty much when we don't have any other. It's when we became a two-party system, 1856. So that next line there, both parties do this. Both parties gerrymander. It's part of the game. Unfortunately, I'm not a fan of gerrymandering. So my personal opinion there's a reason why you're going to lose. Fix it. Do something else. Instead, you rig the map. So in 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in Rucco versus Common Cause that federal courts do not have the authority to redraw maps, which means gerrymandering is not illegal. You cannot gerrymander that would create racial discrimination. You cannot gerrymander that will make districts outsized compared to other districts. But if you draw a map so that your party's going to win, go for it. Yes?
Is it always by party? Because we have people who might vote for Democrat but are not registered Democrats, so is it going to count? How does that work? If you're counting Democrats, there might be more people voting Democrats than are in their count.
They're really good. They pay people a lot of money to figure out how to draw those lines. It's a skill, and it's something they don't. It's not something they do like I think this will work. It is science to draw these maps. There's actually one very simple solution though when Republicans are doing this, and that is get cities together. So they know they're not going to win every district. So let's just make it so that Republicans win 4 and the Democrats win 1. So how do you do that? You just make a district that has all the cities in one. And then all the rural communities in the other ones. Democrats win one with the cities. Rural communities vote red more often. Boom, problem solved. And if you want to see how North Carolina gerrymandered their map, just take a look at how many cities, like the nooks and crannies created in their districts to grab a city. Like it's just going along like, oh, let's go up here and go get that city, knock it down. So Democrats won that one and lost everything around it. Yes?
Do these districts have to be contiguous?
No.
That's a great question. Technically no, but it becomes really obvious when they don't. So they typically continue the map without breaking the lines. So they typically are contiguous, yes.
When they make the districts, so they just look at voter rolls, like who's a registered Republican, and they don't look at independents, they don't look just straight up Republican, Democrat.
But you're also looking at, they look at past elections.
Okay.
They look at how many people, and they can go down by zip code, right? So they can see how many people voted Democrat and how many people voted Republican by a zip code. And now they know where they have a problem, and now they know where they have allies. And it goes from there, yeah.
I mean, they have that information, like when we go canvassing, we are a lot of times canvassing independent for whatever part, you know, because we know they're likely to vote for the candidate that we're talking to. So, yeah, I mean, they obviously have that information. And with algorithms, isn't it so much easier for them to, you know, I mean, they can use computer programming. It's so specific, right?
Yes, this is Siri's fault.
When you're talking about racial discrimination and that's the only thing that's illegal, basically, how do they check that? Like, is it based on the state's racial makeup or like the entire nation or?
The districts.
Okay, so the district
Yes.
needs to be balanced?
No, if they can prove that so this has happened in southern states, unfortunately, of course, right? Where they were able to show that particular neighborhoods were split in half, so that those neighborhoods could not vote together to elect someone of their racial background. And so by splitting that neighborhood between two groups, the white candidate had a better chance of winning. Or they do it the opposite, they go grab a whole bunch of non-white neighborhoods, put them in the same district, right? We'll get one, right? But they lose 5. Where those neighborhoods are like randomly collected. No, they were collected on purpose. You can have this one, but we're gonna have these 5, and we'll just outvote you every single time when we go to the house. Yeah.
Isn't there a good possibility that in Texas, what they did is racial gerrymandering? I mean, haven't they been, what do they call it, cracking and stacking? I don't know.
They're trying to prove it,
But I mean, it doesn't, I mean, but of course, isn't it very difficult to prove now because the Supreme Court is not so on board with
You
any of
answered your own
that?
question. That map's not gonna get thrown out.
Right,
If the maps of,
but,
if their previous map that had the district that snaked all the way through,
Right.
and if the map of North Carolina gets approved, this one's not gonna lose.
so basically they're ignoring the Civil Rights Act, basically, the Voting Rights Act?
Well,
Not eviscerated.
but their argument would be that it's clearly obvious that we didn't do it for racial purposes. It's clearly obvious that we did it for party purposes. And they don't have to hide from that because that previous Supreme Court cases they're allowed to do that.
That's why
So
that
they're
case
just gonna
is
come forward and say, yeah,
ridiculous.
of course we did it like this, see? And that's all the evidence they're gonna need. It's not gonna get thrown out.
And didn't the Voting Rights Act get eviscerated in like the first Trump administration?
Shelby County?
Only particular parts of it. So this part still exists. The Voting Rights Act that allowed for federal authority to keep looking at their states and their elections, that part got thrown out. So states that used to have federal regulators and watchdogs no longer do. And I think that was Alabama,
Shelby
Mississippi, and Georgia, if I remember correctly. Okay. Maybe in Louisiana too. So this part of the Voting Rights Act was not thrown out, but it just gave them a different tool. They don't have to defend themselves against racial discrimination. They can just clearly point out like, no, we just did it for parties. We drew the line based on parties.
The line between race and race is getting real. It's basically the same line at this point.
Right?
That's why that
Right.
case is wrong.
Right? It's basically the same lines, but they can literally argue without fear that they drew them for political reasons and not racial reasons, and that's all they're going to need. So any hope that the other branches are going to come to the rescue? Right? Don't think that. That's not what's going to happen. Right? It's going to come down to how the two parties decide to play the game. And the Republicans, you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it, they have no shame, or you can look at it, they have gigantic huevos. Right? And you can look at it as no shame as a criticism, Whereas others were like, hey, you ain't trying, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And they're technically not breaking the rules. They went to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said you can do this, and they done right to it. They
But
embraced
also
it in no
changing
time.
precedent of changing the census in 5 years to 10 years, that's also another issue that could come up,
Good luck.
what Trump wants.
Takes a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
It's in the Constitution as a decennial census. This means you need 2/3 of Congress to vote yes, and you need 2/3 of the states to vote yes. You will never get that. They're winning the way it is now. We don't have 2/3 of the states that would vote yes to change the census. People don't want the census every 10 years, right? It's more likely to go to 20 than it is to 5. The rural communities find the censuses to be federal,
Like intrusion.
right, like incursions and, like stay off my land type stuff. So that's pinning your hopes on something that actually changing the
I
word.
mean, that's what Trump
Constitution.
wants
Yeah, that's
for
rough.
5 years.
So they can gerrymander anytime they want.
Obviously.
Now,
So then why are we voting on it?
there's my question right there. Lead right into the next slide. My plant right here. All right, so why do we have to vote on it? Well, that goes back to how California currently lines their districts. All right, so the Citizens Commission drew their lines in 2020, all right, for the new election in 2022, and that was not legislature. That was the Citizens Commission drew the lines, and now that Texas has redrawn theirs, we want to redraw ours. They say, right? Theirs are drawn already. So it comes to what happened with, all right, so there's the current, this is what happened in 2020. You have the red states there that lost 1 seat. You have the yellows who gained 1, and you have the blues that gained 2.
And you can't kill freedom, so this one is for
So
Trump.
you can see that the only gain for a Democrat-leading state is Oregon. Colorado is kind of a split, and the other yellows and blue are Republican states. And so not only did that change the representation in Congress, it also changes the electoral college map for 2024 and 2028, right? And you have more, you can see Texas up to 38, by giving their 2 seats. And for the first time in a long time, we lost.
Who makes the decision? Who should lose?
It's based on the census. So it's based on the numbers and math. And our population was no longer, like, when they did the math, we could be within that range of 770,000 with 1 less seat. And so therefore we lost a seat. And that's because you had states that no longer could live within that 770,000 with the number of seats that they had. And, right, you can't take away from the ones. So Wyoming could lose 200,000 people of their population, and they're still gonna have 1, because you can't lose your 1. So you can't take from those states, even though they may have been losing population. You gotta have your 1.
It just doesn't make sense because our country's population is just gonna keep growing.
Yeah, not anymore.
No.
Yes, David?
Because I had to step outside, so I just need to clarify. So every state gets 1 electoral vote, and then it's the ones that get 2 or 3, it's based on population.
Right, so for electoral college vote,
Uh-huh.
you can do the math right here. We
Right.
are no longer worth 55, we're now only worth 54. Because we have our 52 House seats and we have our 2 Senate seats. We're worth 54 points.
And then Texas
So
is
you are
worth,
worth how many points you have in Congress. So Texas is now worth 40, because they have their 38 House seats and they have their 2 senators. So that adds up right there to 535. You then throw in 3 seats for the District of Columbia, which was like amendment number 23 or 24. Don't quote me, it's one of those.
okay.
Where we added, well, until the 1950s, Washington DC did not vote for the presidential election. We had to do a constitutional amendment. So now it's 538, which means the magic number for a president is 270.
And then our like Puerto Rico and Guam and American Samoa, they don't get a vote at all.
Nope.
They just get told what to do. Okay.
They get paper towels.
They can't vote. I mean, I get that, why does it like, power.
Yeah, well, that's why we're trying to change it, but
Do you guys need a break?
no.
Because I'm like only 2 slides from powering through this baby. You good? California is 54. So it's 52 representatives and 2 senators. All right, so here's where this became relevant. Gerrymandering's been an issue since I've been teaching. So I started teaching in 1990. All right, and from the very beginning, we have taught gerrymandering. And it was like in one of my first years there, we're redrawing the maps for 1992. California is adding 7 districts, so it was super relevant my first few years of teaching. And then in 2000, it wasn't much of an issue for California. We didn't add it. 2010, we didn't add it. And also in 2020, we're not talking about adding. We actually had to redraw the maps because we lost one. And so when I've been teaching gerrymandering, it's been other states. Texas has the famous one. They have this snake that literally runs through the middle of their state, just snagging Democrats out of other districts. So the Democrats won that one and then lost all the districts around it. So Texas is the opposite of us. We have 42 representatives from the Democratic Party. We have 9 from the Republicans, even though the elections are much closer than that. Texas is the opposite. I think there's like 5 Democrats and 33 Republicans, even though the elections are closer. In other words, both teams play this game.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that more state legislatures are controlled by Republicans, therefore they get to gerrymander more states. Right? California is a huge state, New York's a huge state, because the Fringe is a really populated state. Democrats tend to win those, but they also don't gerrymander as much because they put the districts in the hands of people, not legislatures. So here's the relevance. President Trump came out and said, you know what, this majority is already very thin. Does anyone know the history of midterm elections?
Other parties
They
usually
always lose, the president always loses.
So since 1934, the trend has been that the party of the president loses seats in the midterm elections. That has happened every single time except once. Anyone know what year?
2018?
Nope. Trump lost.
Yeah, George W.
2002. President Bush was the most popular president in the history of presidents. His handling of 9/11, right? His handling of 9/11, the country's bounce back, the response. He was the most popular president in the history of presidents. And not only did he not lose seats, they whooped them. Like it was a red smash down, right? Where blue states were, it was supposed to be a Democratic increase. It was a major Republican increase. The only time it's happened since 1934. President Bush then had another midterm election in 2006. At that point, he was the least popular president in the United States.
Yeah, that's
Seriously, he owns both. He owns the most popular, the highest approval rating of all time, and the lowest. And in 2006, he got smoked, right? And all of a sudden, there comes the blue wave. So the only time it didn't happen was 2002. That's definitely connected to the country's response to 9/11, right? It happened to Obama twice. It happened to Trump the first time. It happened to Biden. It's happened every time, except 2002. Well, Republicans redistrict too. They know this is coming up, and their majority is already super thin. If they lose anything, that majority is gone. So let's do this instead. Right, so the trend has been the ruling party loses seats, and they want to find a way around that. So he then requests 5 new districts from Texas, and Texas says, you got it, what are your guys? And they redraw the maps. Missouri said, we can do that. They added 2. How come Missouri only adds 2? A little harder for them to add. Right? They only have 8. Right? So adding 2 is actually pretty impressive, because Texas only added 5 out of 38. So Missouri jumped up and adds 2, which is where Newsom says, well, how many you guys add is how many we're going to add. We definitely have 5, but if you guys keep playing this game, we'll go all the line. And he kind of backed off that unless other states step up. Hey, blue states, you guys ready to step up? And that's kind of his call. Yes?
Why hasn't the other Republican states got into the snowball effect of gerrymandering?
Super small. Like, so many of them are so small, that they don't really have any room to maneuver already. And a lot of them already send to every single one of them. Oklahoma, it's all 5. Arkansas, it's all 4. Gerrymandering wouldn't do them any good. They already sweep it. So there's very little maneuvering. Georgia is like a potential one. I think they're kind of scared. They're already under such a microscope of what happened with 2020 that I don't think they really want to test things a lot. Gotta wait. Florida's the next one.
I thought that Florida was looking at.
So there's already talk from other Republican states. Right now, they don't need to because it's 7-0. No Republican states have redrawn their maps where they've gained any seats. So right now, they've got what they need. If California responds and some other Democratic state responds, it's very possible additional Republican states will come in, and then all you're going to have is a gerrymandered Congress.
And in New York State, I mean, they have something in their constitution also.
They
that I
face
thought
the same.
was.
They face the same thing California faces.
So will they be able to? Do they gonna have to hold a special election in New York?
They will. And so.
What about Illinois?
Okay, so Illinois is a possibility. Their governor is not a Trump fan. But this, so I think I answered that coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get to
That's
that.
great, he's good.
Right? Okay, so actually, just make sure I covered everything here. All right, so they stepped up. California, Newsom, obviously he's probably profiling a little bit for 2028. He's definitely upped his game and taking on Trump. And he immediately said that California will do this, but we face that issue of having to undo Prop 40. Yes?
No, mine is before you're talking about Prop 50, just the role that is, what the role our state house played in making sure it's on the ballot measure. When you talk about Prop 50.
Okay.
Just on the slide.
He wants to play that game, but we have Prop 40 in our way. And therefore, we have to get the citizens of California to approve lines being drawn by the legislature. Yeah.
Why can't the current Citizens Commission just be on board to redo the lines without having to do a whole vote? I mean, does anyone ask them if they're on board and they can just do it?
I didn't hear the question.
The question was, why doesn't the Citizens Commission just redraw the lines? Because they don't believe in gerrymandering.
He's being too nice.
They don't believe in gerrymandering. There's a democratic process, and the lines were drawn that made sure there were 770,000 people in the districts, and the election turned out the way it turned out in 2024 because here's the way we draw our lines, and no one was complaining.
But even if this passes, it could go back in some years back to a committee. We're just trying to respond to some mess right now.
You really believe that will happen?
I'm just,
That's that slippery slope.
yeah.
Once you get on it, it's hard to get off.
But Prop 50 is only doing it for 25, for 26, 25,
We know it would
28,
stay.
The
and 30.
lines wouldn't change until another census. It is not eliminating the Citizens Commission.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
undoing their lines
Yeah, for
until a
the-
new census.
for
Until a new census.
Until 2030,
Okay,
yeah.
that's better. So we'll go back.
It's just temporary. 5
Thank
years.
you for
You look like that convinced some of you. So you want to talk about Prop 50?
So if you're right, you just had it up there, it's up to you. My question really is it's in our state constitution. So how does it happen, like we're able to have this proposition? Does it just come from Newsom directing the assembly and, is it like?
So when it says it's in the state constitution, technically that's not true. It's in
Okay.
our law code.
All right.
Right, so our process that voters approved in 2012 is to hand it over to a Citizens Commission.
That was under Schwarzenegger.
Okay? So what Newsom directed the legislature to do is to draw new lines that use the same tactics to see where voters are from and to create additional Democratic districts. Legislature then does that, presented him with the map. He says, look, if you vote yes on Prop 50, that is the map that you are approving. It will increase the number of Democrats that go to Congress from California. If you vote no on Prop 50, you are basically siding with the Citizens Commission, and you are keeping the lines that were drawn after the 2020 census.
What was Prop 40?
Prop 40 was the one that removed it from state legislature and put it in the hands of the citizens.
So this is at Newsom's direction to the members of that, to our state legislature.
Yes, and they said okay, and they drew their maps. So,
Okay.
so what's happening in Texas is happening here.
Except in Texas, they didn't vote on it. They didn't go to the
They didn't have to.
citizens because
They
they
didn't
didn't
have
have
to.
any statute.
Right, they didn't have to. So when I say that what's happening here is happening in Texas, meaning that the governor requested that the state legislature draw lines, they did. Well, in Texas, they were allowed to, right? Here, the obstacle is that 2012 law.
And how many votes was California standing in?
Well, the goal was 5, because Texas was getting 5. But because now you have Missouri, it might be 7. If no one else, if somebody else steps up, like Newsom's quote was, whatever happens out there is happening here.
But who says that that's really going to happen because of the unhappiness of so many people in the United States about what is happening with the federal government?
So she just ended my talk. That's actually something I was going to end with. There is no actual guarantee, right? So it could be that people voted that way last time, but their sentiment has changed and they're not gaining as many voters in that district as they think. So yes, it is not a for sure thing, but they're really good at this. Like it's not haphazard. So it would take a pretty, so an example of that is an article I'll have Sue share with you guys, is the Latino voters in Texas. Right? They backed him as the reason why he won so big in Texas, and that could be a big swing based on what's been going on since he's been over, right? So that community might not be nearly as supportive. Okay, and I say might. No, I say might. There are a lot of Latinos that believe there should not be illegal immigration. They came here legally, they went through the process, they endured it, so everyone else should have to too. I have many Latino students who were completely enamored by Trump in the last year's election. And immigration was the issue, right? I have many Latino students that went and counter-protested at ICE issues and things. So, yes, right? So, it is not a sure thing that Latinos are opposed to what ICE is doing. A lot of Latinos had to endure the legal process, spent that money, spent that time, and think that everyone should.
It doesn't mean they won't get picked up on the street. They're right
Okay.
regardless.
So, so the gerrymandering is not a sure thing. So it is based on how people voted in previous elections, which means they could be not gaining as many as they thought. It doesn't mean they're not going to gain any. It just means they might gain 4 instead of 5, right? So that's kind of what the article gets to, is there's a lot of certainty to it, but there's definitely some game changers that could happen.
All we have to do is look at the first Clinton and Trump election where everybody thought for sure Hillary was going to win.
Right. I stopped paying attention to polls.
We do have political scientists doing our mapping as a journalist. And are we helping fund them, those people, I hope?
That's not my department.
I have a question on this. So the redistricting map is already gone.
Yes.
Where can we go to see that?
I don't think we can.
There's a kind of guesstimate of the map out there. Like there are politicians now that are trying to jockey, like for ISIS seat. So somebody came forward and said, oh, I was going to run for this seat, but it looks like if it passes, the district lines are going to change. So now I'm moving down here to run against ISIS. And before I was going to just stay in Riverside and run against whoever that person was. But it's not a for sure, right?
And there's already lots of So there's definitely lots of speculation. The northernmost California district is extremely Republican, and would be really easy to break up because the people are so spread out in this gigantic rural community that it would just be able to grab here and grab there and put them into Democratic leaning districts. So they're already out in an uproar, but it hasn't been released yet. It's just everyone's kind of telling it's going to be us.
It's just speculative.
So if Prop 50 wins, does that mean in the future any changes would have to be board to vote?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, if Prop 50 wins, what happens in like future elections? The only problem would be if somebody asked for the maps to be redrawn again. So the plan is for that map to stay until the next census and redistricting. And I believe the plan is that Prop 50 only applies to now, and the next redistricting would fall back in the hands of the Citizen Commission. So this is purely a response to that side did it over there, and they're cheating, so we're going to cheat and make it even again. Right? Yeah.
Is there any time limit, if Proposition 50 passes in November, and then South Carolina changes their legislature so they redistrict in May? What's the time limit on our redistricting?
It's a great question. There is a time period where the lines have to be approved before an election. And if they're not approved in time, it goes back to the previous lines. So I don't know the exact deadline, but there is one. So in other words, a state's not going to pull it off in October of 2026. Got it, because we did it so late, but there is a deadline. So California, so states are going to have to step up in time to actually be able to do that and get those lines approved before it goes out, because you've got to know who you're voting for.
Yeah.
So you have to know who's running the primaries, you have to know, so there is a deadline. I just don't know the exact space. It's within months though, it's not years. It's months. So it can be in 2026. It just won't be, it won't be October 2026. Right. Does that make sense? So I don't know an exact time, but it is under review. Right. Yeah.
So one thing, I did have somebody come around canvassing at my house, and her main point that she wanted to make was that if Proposition 50 passed, it would only be in place for 3 years and would have to be redone. Is that really true? I mean, it's like if you get your extra
From what I've understood, it was Prop 50 was keeping the maps until the next census.
Until the next census, which is in what year again?
So the census would be 2030, and it would go into effect for 2020. I don't think it's 3 years, I think they mean 3 elections. So it would be 26, 28, and 30.
Okay.
And then the lines, and then the Citizens Commission will redraw the lines based on any changes in the 2030 census, and they would take effect in 2032. So I think the 3 they mean is the 3 congressional elections that will take place between now and the next census.
It seems to me we're faced, with kind of a practical decision, based on what's happening and what we want to see happening in this country. But there's also a real ethical issue here that you've addressed. I think, saying that, well, if they cheat, do we cheat? And is it really cheating? I mean, I think that's I've talked to, let me rephrase it.
No, I think you make a great point. It's not cheating.
Yeah, and I was talking to a Latina, and she said that she was going to vote in favor of Proposition 50, but only because it was for 3 years.
Okay.
And some people will say, okay.
It's not 3 years, it's 3 election cycles.
3 election cycles, okay. And I think people are not understanding that point.
I think they're just stating it wrong. I think they know what they mean. It's just that the elections aren't back-to-back years.
I get, okay,
Yeah,
I see.
so 3 election cycles, 26, 28, 30.
Yeah, so how do we, when we see cheating happening, you know, how do we decide how, it's a huge issue, ethical issue for me, you know, it's like, how do we?
Well, you can be ethical and lose, or you can be cheating like others and try to see if you change the balance. I mean, what is ethical and what is moral?
So this,
Yeah.
But it's.
I'm not pro gerrymandering. I think that if we're gonna be so the question I ask my government students that they have to answer at the end of the year is, are we who we say we are? And I teach them who we say we are. Right? And then they took a look at actually how it's going. Like, this is what we wrote down. This is what we've promised people. This is how things are supposed to work. Is that what really happens? And they get to tell me. Right? I disagree with a lot of them. Right? They still get good grades as long as they defend themselves. Right? So I'm not pro gerrymandering. I think we are. We're too obsessed with winning. And when you're obsessed with winning, you're not paying attention to why you've lost. You're just trying to win. And neither side is paying attention to what voters are trying to tell us now. Right? So Republicans, like, if you're going to lose, there's a reason why. Change it for the next one. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. Okay?
But they're
But
not.
there's nothing to stop them now from doing it. So if it's not cheating for one side, it's not cheating for the other side. So if one side's going to do it, the other side's going to do it.
And my question, it's like, and I don't disagree, because I hear Carol, right, because I don't agree with gerrymandering, but how is it cheating? I mean, how is it cheating?
You are taking,
I mean, in terms of how it's portrayed,
Okay.
right, you know what I'm saying?
So it's based on, so here's why it ends up looking like cheating. It destroys the ratio of what the states have, right? So North Carolina is practically 50-50, right? Seriously, the voting rolls are practically 50-50. Where's my map? Right, so North Carolina has 14. It is like 51-49, Republicans, Democrats.
Right?
Well, it's not 7-7. It's not 8-6. It's not 9-5. It's 10-4. How'd that happen? Gerrymandering. That's why gerrymandering is bad. And that's it, right there. It destroys what like that ratio of 51-49 should be revealed in the number of people sent by North Carolina, right? Hey guys, California does not win. 80%, Democrats don't get 80% of the vote in California. 41 or 42-9. We do it too. Right? It happens here too.
So either all the states should do it or none of the states should do it, so that's the point.
So what's the answer? The answer maybe is a national committee.
A
to draw
national,
lines.
Wasn't there
But,
a
hey,
bill?
but
the Republicans don't want it.
we're a federalist society though. We're a system that is in the hands of the states. So that would be that increasing federal authority, which is something that we're not supposed to do. Yeah, you're going to speak on it?
Wasn't there an act that the Democrats kept trying to get passed and never did, that was going to get rid of gerrymandering? I mean, so that was federal, that was the House of Representatives. I mean,
But
so,
Republicans don't want it.
just saying, and I can't remember what the act was called, For the People Act, maybe?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, so just saying, I mean, who's against gerrymandering, but he can't seem to, can't get it done because everything's so gerrymandered. I mean, it's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yes.
No, it's true.
So the statement of, do you want to play fair and lose? Or do you want to play even and fight? Do you have a question?
No, I have a comment.
Sure.
So for me, the big picture is why we're here and how did we get here? So for me, it's protecting our democracy.
That's right.
So that's why we're here.
That's our
And that's what we
mission.
have to do. So it's a little too late. I mean, to be discussing whether we're playing fair or not. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. Even though I hit the streets and I'm gonna be at the voting booths and help people out and try to help them vote, stuff like that. For me, to serve in the government and serve in the military, I don't wanna lose that democracy.
Right.
That's the bottom line for me. Screw all this playing.
That's
Okay. So I'm going to do the teacher thing now and play the devil's advocate. Voting for Prop 50 is going against democracy. Because you are giving legislators a chance to take that ratio of what California voters, actually how many Democratic and Republican voters there are, and tip it even more to their Democrats. But there's.
But it's temporary.
Okay, okay. You can start, no,
Yeah,
I'm
there's
not saying that there's
excuses,
not
exactly.
argument, like, there's
Yeah.
definitely arguments for
Yeah.
why Prop 50 is necessary. Texas does not frickin' care, they've already done it. Missouri's already done it. So protecting democracy can now look as a different thing. Well, if other places are gonna skew it, then it's gotta be skewed back the other direction somewhere else.
It's like balancing,
Right.
it's a balancing act.
So,
So be honest about it.
yeah.
To add on to what this gentleman said, our generation has screwed things up immensely. As an educator, when you ask the question at the beginning of your school year, what are your students telling you at the end?
They don't trust anybody.
Except for you.
So I'm teaching econ this semester. I don't have government until next semester. And I asked the students on Thursday, how much do you trust businesses to do the right thing without regulation? And it is the same answer every single year. Not a single student raises their hand. There's zero faith in authority doing the right thing. They don't trust anybody.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of us, when we were that age, didn't trust.
Right.
And things like that.
Nobody was
Right now,
afraid.
for 2026, we're trying to condition what that is just to get say democracy.
So we don't trust it either now,
No.
so.
Right? So there's, youth has that tendency to be pessimistic. It's not like they're being overwhelmed with optimism anywhere, right? In anything, except my room. So yes, they are. They do not say when their answer of "Are we who we say they are?" Most of the answers are not. And they have the choices of picking things like, "Are we as democratic as we say?" So when I teach democracy, I break it down to. I put 4 countries' names on the wall. United States, and I put the official names, the Republic of the United States of America, Democratic People's Republic of China. North Korea has got like 7 names, I can't remember them. People's Democratic Republic of North Korea, and Republic of Cuba. Which name is correct? And they all pick us. The answer is all 4. They're all correct. So here are these countries that we claim to be entirely different from, using the same description in their titles as we do. Okay. But I then teach democracy has 5 categories, 5 principles to it. You protect individual freedom, you compromise, you have equality, you have, I'm on the spot here.
Freedom of expression.
Majority rule, minority right, and I missed one.
Human rights.
That was it, individual freedoms. The heck am I forgetting? There's a 5th one. Trust me, there's a 5th one. And so in other words, it's not just are we democratic, it's do we have these 5. And what we claim is that we do, and those other countries do not have this. Right? And so then I give them that, like, so now, here's our test. We say we have these 5, we say they don't. And that's what they investigate, and that's what they look into. And when they look into individual freedoms, they'll just point, oh, Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a job anymore. They see things like that. And they'll see cancel culture, they'll see TikTok getting taken away, that's the big one. And so they question that. And then federalism, that the states get to be different, and that in California you don't have to learn what Florida's teaching, you don't have to learn what Texas is teaching. So they definitely find some things that we are doing the way we say we're doing, but they also find things that we've strayed from that. So.
You see the difference that when you are teaching critical thinking, essentially in the classes, and you're fighting, which I think is a proper role in classrooms, then we're faced with feeling like we want to think critically, but we're also faced with people we don't really think are thinking critically.
If I had done this the wrong way
Except
today.
for in their favor, and I think that that's the dilemma. And, you know, I wouldn't criticize people's choices. I'm still kind of on the fence. I just think we need to recognize
You know how many crazy arguments I read?
We're weighing the facts.
Kids come up with
Is it
some
worse
real,
to have, what do you say?
Like, I wanna tell them,
Yeah.
you're wrong. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Right,
Right? If
but-
I had done this the wrong way today, this screen would only have one side. Right? So I'm not here to tell you which one. I'm here to tell you here's what's going on. This is why it's brought up. Those are your choices. And all I've been asked to do is to get you in here to think about it. Yeah.
Do you feel pressure to not teach about the history of slavery or the civil rights movement?
You need to come see my class. I teach whatever I want. Alright, so
far.
yeah, and so no, I feel zero pressure at all.
If you were in
and-
Texas, would you feel it?
Oh, I tell them, so I'll do a lesson, what lesson is that? So I'll do a lesson on equality. And so equality is broken into two pieces, equality under the law and equality of opportunity. Right? So if you're going to truly be a country that promotes equality, you treat people equally under the law and you provide equal opportunity. And then I will then put up the Central Park 5, which ones do I use? I use Tulsa, in the Devil in the Grove. It's Thurgood Marshall's big case from Florida, where the sheriff pinned the guy down on the ground and shot him in the neck. And the FBI found the bullet straight down in the ground. Like the bullet was straight down on the ground. The FBI found it from the sheriff's gun. And the sheriff said, oh, no, I shot him when he was running away. That man remained sheriff for another 39 years. Right.
What state?
Florida.
Florida.
Just one of those. Right? And so I would never be able to teach that in Florida. I would be in jail. And I tell the kids that. I tell them, I said, look, here's an example of federalism right here. I would not be able to teach that lesson. In other states, they can tell me you're not allowed to even mention this.
When you teach economics, you're doing economics right now. So you talk about the tariffs, and then you talk about the role that Congress had in like giving up all their power to the government, or the president, for the tariffs.
In December.
You do. I mean, you do bring all of that. Yeah. And you couldn't do that in Florida.
There's a lot of things you could do in Florida.
I'm saying.
So yes, I mentioned to my students how there's an example of federalism right there, that California has this approach to teaching. I mean, we're requiring ethnic studies. It's going to become a graduation requirement in 2 years, right? Whereas the ethnic studies, AP ethnic studies class in Florida, they weren't allowed to. They took entire chapters out. Yeah.
I was just wondering, when you were talking to your kids about not you saying that, but them not trusting authority, not trusting the system and everything, you get the feeling that these aren't voters yet, but they will be good. Are they apathetic about, I'm not going to even vote because it doesn't make any difference?
I deal with that in my own family. My son is really down on the system, right? And it's not like he doesn't have active parents. It's just that he looks around and goes, it's not changing anything, nothing's changing. So that lack of hope. But then you have hard drivers. You have my daughter who looks at my son, you idiot, go vote. So it's both, it's the same. We have a program at our school called CAPI, stands for Community Awareness, Participation, and Impact. We're the only school that I know of that has this requirement that students have to either attend or participate or take part in activities beyond the classroom. And So I had dozens of students at the event Wednesday night outside of Oceanside City Hall. I'll have dozens of students out at the event later this afternoon in Vista, Hacienda, and Emerald. Yeah, there's
The city council in Vista and
yeah, but there's an event today at Hacienda and Emerald about what's the phrase? I'll find it in my email. I'll put it up there. I have the flyer.
Is it gonna be young people, mostly young people?
My people are young.
So we can join the young people? Because every demonstration that I go to, I shake the hands of young people. Because there's just not enough young people.
You have no idea what that means to them. Like it's, they
do, they respond.
Yeah, when they see that people notice that they're there, and they're like, oh, you know, like the passion that, the passion of the people in this room, it infects,
Yeah.
right? And
I always tell them to bring somebody else in. Democrats, perhaps 2 or 3.
so, now the sad thing is, they would not be there if I didn't make them go.
they get credit.
They get credit, I mean, that's why they're there, right? So unfortunately, other schools, you won't see a lot of kids. Some, but not like our school, they have to be there. But then they realize like, when's the next one? When's the next one? And that's why we have the assignment.
So are we free to go to that this second?
Yeah, sure.
I'll put up the second.
What's the theme?
It's ice. So I'll put it up in a minute.
Yeah, there's a group at Oceanside too, you're free to go to those planning meetings.
I just wanted to follow a point earlier about like our democracy, right, and that, and doing things that it's not democratic, but, or we want to save our democracy, but I feel like we've lost our democracy, so that's why it's in one more way too, of go for the yes, you know, or we have to do this, we can't, like, risk losing our democracy, right? We have those 5 things that you're talking about that are supposed to be there, right? But we're losing them across the board, right? And I have a 23-year-old son, yeah, he's down on everything. I mean, so yeah, we have to do what we can because I feel like we've lost so much. And
2026 is absolutely gigantic. Because you take half the Congress, just half Congress away from the ruling party and everything changes. 2026 is huge.
I'm gonna kind of, is there any questions that anyone has before this started for Tim that he didn't answer?
Oh, I just wanted,
I mean, if there's anything. Go on.
I just wanted to ask, I know the free speech thing has just come up recently. Any reactions with your students? I know it's just been, you know, the Jimmy Kimmel and Charlie Kirk and all that stuff. Any exchanges with your students?
The Charlie Kirk was more, and it was an even split, where people that were super sad were kind of put in check about what he stood for. I heard people fire back like, well, you hate everybody. So there was a definite split. Yes, there were students that were devastated by his assassination, and there were students that, like, which both are scary.
Yeah.
But kids definitely knew who he was. He was they're his target population. They definitely knew who he was. Yeah. So kids are paying attention. They're just not happy with anything. There's a pessimism that you know I have to battle because pessimism leads to apathy.
Yes. I think if I could just say something to that, I really appreciate the questions about your students because we're a little removed from all of that. But I also I personally know that young people are doing things. We have some wonderful organizations, for example, in San Diego, that are college students, maybe 30. I'm not sure how young we want to say. How young do we want to go? What's young now for us? But there are some wonderful organizations, and I'll have older people say to me, "Kids aren't doing anything," and I say, "They are. You're just not looking in the right places for the things that they're doing." And I think it's important to, increase our ability to know what they're doing and support their demonstrations when we can. And I think especially I was at a demonstration in Escondido on ICE, it was a lot of young people with fewer older people. And I think that was just kind of an amazing thing to me to see. And I agree, when we see that, we just need to tell them how wonderful they are. It's like,
You like that?
support them, not say, and now what you should have done is this, because that happens too. It's like, I'm involved with some organizations and people say, why aren't kids, why aren't younger people coming to our organizations? I say, because you're old and it's the way you treat them when they do come. They don't want to be with old people all the time. And, and you're patronizing. So, I think it behooves us to see one of our roles as being mentors if we're asked, but basically tell them they're doing a great job.
A lot of that too is like, what I find is that a lot of the demonstrations are during the day, during the week, where children go to schools. And when there are protests on the weekends, you'll see like the old people show up first. And then if they go into the evening, the young kids will start filtering. So maybe we need to start building some of these events around times where children are available.
And the other thing that I noticed, having done this, is someone asked me, well, what about like during the Vietnam era, it was all young people, and why was it? Why were there so many young people in the streets around the Vietnam era?
Because they were getting back to the
All of a sudden, when you're talking about immigration issues, who's impacted by their parents being kidnapped? Who's impacted by the DACA? How many kids are starting to take DACA kids and they're starting to incarcerate DACA kids? So we're looking at the issues that impact them here. And our support is totally welcome at any of those events, as long as we always recognize they're the ones that are doing the organizing. We just get to come in and say, how can we help? What do you need from us, right? And so there are those kinds of things, but if we want to attract young people, it has to be like, what are their issues? And right now, the one that we see, I'm not talking about climate change as a non-issue, we're looking at immigration, particularly here, and how it's a core issue. And those kids are terrified.
Yeah.
Those kids are terrified. And so how do you lean into, or all of us lean into the privilege that we have to be able to support them? What does that mean? And so then we get to figure out, we get to look and say, okay, we have this privilege, we're not worried we're gonna get deported. We're not worried our families are gonna get ripped apart. So what can I do to lean into that privilege and kind of provide the support? What can we organize? Do we get attorneys? I don't know how many immigration attorneys are available. But what is it that we need to do? I think it's Dia that's down in Solana Beach. There are a couple of boards that have kind of gotten together to be able to provide the support that people need.
Are there going to be more Civics 101 classes?
Do you want one?
This is the second. So this is the second time that we've had Tim speak. We love Tim.
Hear that, Mom?
What do you think? Is she Miss Leary?
She is.
Yeah, Miss Leary.
If you guys are interested in attending more of these types of workshops and learnings, make sure you sign up for the mailing list here. Again, scan the QR code, you can sign up there. I do have a list of Prop 50 actions that you can take, as well as some other community events that are happening. So if you guys want to photograph this with your phone on your way out, you can do that, but I'll just run through them real quick. Tomorrow, Demco is having an Oceanside Go Team event. That's going to be 3 to 4 at Ivy Ranch. You can RSVP on the Demco website. And basically it's their Go Team for Prop 50. So they'll be going through how to canvass stores, how to call people, it's their it's their squad. So get involved with Demco, you can do that tomorrow. You could also contribute to the effort financially if you don't feel like going out and knocking on doors. So there's a link to donate to the City of Dems there. You can sign up for a phone bank at act.gavinewsom.com, so that way they have all different phone banks you can sign up for to make phone calls. October 4th is when the special election is, right? So we have November. Sorry. So we have a little bit of time. You can start making calls at openvpv.com. You just go there and you can start making calls right away. There are 3 cities that are having, there are actually many more, there's Encinitas and Del Mar, La Jolla and Poway and all the cities, but the locals, so San Marcos, Vista, and Carlsbad, every city is hosting sort of like a day of action event. So for San Marcos, it's October 4th, for Vista, it's September 23rd, for Carlsbad, it's every Saturday and Sunday. This is day of action related to Prop 50. So if you're in that city and you want to take part in that city's events, then you would go to those days of action. And then we also have the October 18th 1 Million Rising protest, which many people are attending. I will be attending the Vista one with my friend Sue and Rebecca and
Whoever else wants to come to Vista, we love the Vista one.
But Demco's doing one.
We do.
San Marcos is doing one.
And October 18th is Carlsbad?
Yes,
Yeah.
There'll be Demco and Indivisible 49 will organize that one. We're gonna go, and in Vista, it's gonna be at the Poorhouse on the 23rd from 5 to 8. Nancy Oshley will be there, she's the Go-Team coordinator, she'll give you literature, and she'll give you all of the information you need. And this is all about Prop 50. I'm sorry Kyle couldn't come because he was giving us specific talking points. I didn't ask Tim to do it because I didn't know until this morning that Kyle wasn't gonna be here, so. And the talking points kind of talk about what Carol just talked about. I mean, we go to meetings and people have ethical concerns about what is it we're doing. I mean, it's a serious kind of, I think it's okay, but I'm not real comfortable. Because we're so uncomfortable with the other side cheating, it feels like that. So we have opportunities to practice that, so we can have conversations. So when we talk to people who might be on the fence, at least we can have some shared conversations. So we don't sound like we're just like, you have to do this, right? So we can walk away with a relationship about why this is so important. And it's kind of like, when, you know, we don't have equal representation in the Senate. The closest we can do in 26 is take back the House. And I don't want to do it this way, but I don't know, honestly, in my heart, any other way to do it. And then I just have one more thing to say, and then we can all go. So I was at a meeting the other night, and it's me, and every day we're so depressed, and oh my God, what are we going to do, and where's all the hope? And I think we need to learn how to elevate the voices of the people in the House and the Senate that are pushing really, really hard for us. And we don't always see them, because they're not always on legacy media. We see Jasmine Crockett, who we love. If you follow Sarah Jacobs, you might hear Sarah Jacobs, who's not quite as loud as Jasmine Crockett. But if we sit down and we listen to any of the other hearings, there are many, many other members of the Democratic Party that are pushing back. And my own personal ask is, when we see that, if we can elevate those voices and honor them and thank them. Because I can only imagine the hate mail that they get, like serious hate mail. And so if we can kind of do that, that's like my ask. So I'm mostly on Facebook because I'm like really floja and don't know how to do Instagram very well. Just saying, you know, I'm one of those old people learning new things and my fingers are kind of fat here. So anyway, but I lean on Liz, and a lot of the stuff that I do is on her channels, right? Because we like to collaborate a lot. And then there was an action that I was showing her, it came from Common Cause this morning, and I think you're gonna post it, and it was like 5 easy peasy things we can do. And I'll look for it on Facebook before we leave, I'll show it to you, about what happened with Disney. Because I understand the Disney Channel or whatever crashed because so many people got in touch with them. They stop. But there's like other, like, there's a real quick and dirty link that they want us to go to Sinclair Broadcasting. We find out what they are. And we start screenshotting all their advertisers. And we send it somewhere. So we're able to set up a boycott against the advertisers. And there are 5 different ones. I'll put it up on my Facebook, and she'll show it to, you know,
I'll
she'll
post it on the social channels.
On the social channels. And it's easy stuff. People are doing all of the work for us. You click, and you go. You click and you make a phone call. You click and you got a petition. You click and you get to do that. So if you want to start taking those kind of actions that don't take any time, then when you're watching stupid TV, let me click and just do this, and we're all good to go.
I brought the phone numbers with me for local ABC affiliates, for Sinclair, for Nexstar, for Disney. So if anybody's interested in making calls to them, I brought it with me today. And I also want to put a plug in for the City of Oceanside. Unfortunately, on Wednesday, for those of you, we worked for months to get tenant protection ordinance passed. Sanchez, Weiss, and Robinson voted it down. It's very disappointing. They are not supporting local communities with this. So we are really pushing to change the makeup of the city council. So if anybody's interested in working with us for that, I'm happy to chat with
Wait,
you.
that measure didn't pass on Wednesday?
Pardon me?
I thought Sanchez voted yes.
No, she voted no.
For the for tenants?
Oh, for.
For tenant protection ordinance.
So for the.
They went through every single.
They kind of.
Yeah, they went through every single thing and they voted.
They
How
kind
did
of.
the immigration?
Well,
They passed a lot of it. Said that they were already doing it.
Yeah, that's not true.
Okay.
Oh, but some changes that they
So
didn't
I
like.
would really like to do something similar to Vista, what they've just recently done in Oceanside with the whole immigrant community protections that they've recently, I guess it's just passed. So if anyone's interested in,
That's what, go to the meeting on Tuesday night.
yeah.
Does
Meeting
everybody
in
have
Vista on
a know
Tuesday
your rights
night.
card?
I'm gonna jump out,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my mom to a
Thank you,
pizza
Tim.
place, we're gonna go to pizza.
Where?
Did anyone want to take a picture of this? This is the
So this is the one
immigration
that's happening this
Yes.
afternoon?
I got it.
that's happening this afternoon, so.
Leary, L-E-A-R-Y.
I just wanna clarify something though, not all my students will be at that one, because we offer both sides. So a student brought me this and I put it up there, and then a student brought me a pro-life event that was happening in Escondido today, and we put that one up too. I don't care what they think, I just want them thinking. So, I mean, it's gotta start somewhere.
What time is that one?
This one here is at 5:30.
5:30 today, tonight. Can you hit the lights real quick, Beth, so we can take a picture? Thanks. All right, everyone get out your phones. This is 5:30 this evening, if you guys are interested.
And that 1830 Hacienda, it looked like it was the strip mall on the corner of Emerald and Hacienda.
And it's over where like the.
There, Heriberto's drive-through is on the other side of the street. Yeah, so Costco is like the kitty corner, catty corner.
Mhm.
Kitty corner. I never knew that was correctly.
Thank you.
One of those.
All right.
And there's one other person that his name is Doug Porter. He's a political person, and he keeps, just Google him, you'll find him, he's got a Facebook page, he's got Insta, and he keeps a running record of every action that's happening in the county. I mean, all of our actions, but it's just by different boards. So that's
his
just
name again?
Doug Porter.
He's on Substack, he's just
The meeting Tuesday night is at the Vista City Council, and I'll show you the, thank you for going. It really has to do with, it has to do with.